Hello, and welcome to the Tabletop Almanac. My name is Simon, and this episode we are looking at Alien the RPG by Free League Publishing. This has rapidly become one of my favorite games. Now, if you are following our actual play of the Lost Worlds campaign from the Building Better Worlds sourcebook, which is the campaign guide to the colonist, settler, explorer campaign framework, then you'll have seen some of it in action. If you watched my video on the Alien Starter Set, then you've already got a basic idea of how everything works. But if you haven't done that, I will be covering some of similar material in this episode. So first off, as I said, since it has become one of my favorite games, you can expect this is going to be a positive review. There are still caveats in there because not every game is for everyone, but this one's for me and I like it. So, this is, of course, based off the Alien franchise. The Alien franchise being the set of movies. There are novels. I didn't know there were novels, and comic books and video games, of which I've played a couple, but not many and not much. The comics I actually found quite enjoyable, and despite what one might think, it never gets old to see the heroes struggle to survive and the villains get theirs in the face of the uncaring universe, which is what Alien is in part about. It is the setting a mix of the dark mega corporation future of all good cyberpunk, the space exploration parts of sort of classic sci-fi, and uh, wrapped in a philosophy of the universe is actively hostile and trying to kill you. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about things that might have popped up in Prometheus or Alien Covenant or any of the other movies like that. I've seen these movies and they were enjoyable to the extent that one could enjoy them. Um, but Alien and Aliens are, I think, still the best. Now, as to why you might not like this game, it is not for the squeamish because aliens, they will kill your characters, expect your characters to die if the GM's playing their role correctly, and expect that it will happen in very unpleasant ways, and expect that you do not always have control over your character in the way that you might want or expect from some other games out there. So, without further ado, I will open the book, which is a lovely hardcover, nice and thick. Doesn't have to be this thick necessarily. When I show you the layout, you might sort of see why. Now, this is probably a word-heavy page, set of pages, but then you might get, well, that one's pictures. Yeah, okay, this one's not bad. These, which would normally sort of, one might call them sidebars. Now, this is gorgeous. I love it. I love the layout. I love how it looks. And I love that it's pretty easy to read. Each topic is segmented in a similar fashion as here. You can see synthetics, drowning, there's a chart, yada, yada, which makes it relatively easy to find the material in here. Now, for the Lost Worlds, I am running Foundry and using that in the background. That has its own advantages, that a lot of the rules and calculations are done for you, and you won't miss things necessarily, which, or you don't even have to fully understand things before you get to them. You just have to do what it prompts you to do. It's a good system. I'm saying system because I said Foundry module once, and people told me that I was saying the wrong thing when I meant a system. But for me, a module is something you attach into it. But the Foundry version of the Alien system is great. My only beef is that because you can't alt tab through all your stuff in Foundry, to my knowledge, it gets a bit crowded when you're trying to reference NPCs, monsters, and rules all at once. So if you have it in PDF, if you have it in print, keep it handy on the side. It'll help smooth things along. Okay, so Alien uses the Year Zero engine, which in this version is a six dice pool system where you roll your attribute, one of four, added to a skill, one of more, and try to get sixes. If you get a six, you get a success. If the action is harder or easier, you gain or lose dice. Certain items, tools, advantages, etc., will give you bonus dice. Circumstances might give you fewer dice. And then if you still don't get any sixes in excess of the successful one convert into basically stunt points that you can spend on things related to that skill to gain a greater advantage. This could be extra damage. This could be extra information. This could be a more thorough job of convincing the person you're trying to persuade that you have the right idea. Now, the trick is that if you don't succeed, or you don't succeed to the extent you want to, say that xenomorph is bearing down on you and you empty your pulse rifle into it, but only get two successes and are pretty sure that's not going to be enough, you can push your die roll. And this is common to all Year Zero games, but for Alien, if you push it, any dice that are not sixes in your dice pool, you roll again and hope to get more sixes. Now, off the bat, that's not the worst thing you can do, but there is a price. You gain a point of stress. And then the next time you make a roll, that point of stress becomes a stress die. In the starter set video, I showed you the black and yellow dice. The black dice are the standard ones. The yellow ones are the dice you add into it. Obviously, just have a distinguishing one. You don't need the official dice, though they are cool. And depending on how you get it, maybe very affordable. I got them in the starter set because that was actually a better cost value secondhand for me than it was to just buy the dice. And again, that's not necessarily bad. You get more dice, more chances at sixes, right? Except if you roll a one, you have to roll on the panic table because that stress that has been building up becomes more of a problem. And the more stress points you have, the more stress dice you roll, the more ones you could possibly get. And they're represented by a nice little facehugger icon. And when you panic, you roll a six-sided die and add your current level of stress to that and compare it to the panic chart, which may have nothing happen. You might just go, okay, that was rough, but I'm all right. To, hey man, this is getting twitchy here. Be careful, everyone. To flat out, game over, man, game over, because then you go berserk or something. In the last episode of the first story in Lost Worlds, you can see stress and panic rolls in action in a very harrowing way that we played straight because that was the way to get the full extent of the system and understand it. And it ping-ponged back and forth between the two PCs, causing them to both panic and do all sorts of stuff, and it got a bit unpleasant at the end. Like I said before, you will not necessarily have full control over your character in Alien, and that's something you have to accept going in. Don't get too close to them. They are a fun avatar to engage with the universe, but this is not the sort of thing where you are embodying them and they are your way of expressing this aspect of your personality. Well, I mean, they could be this aspect of your personality, though. It's not the place to really dig into that because they are fragile. And in the very first session of the following story, which we haven't uploaded as of this date, one of the PCs in the very first encounter with something dangerous, their stress rockets up to like an 8 or 9 or something, such that they are actually rolling on the panic table and running out of there. So keep that in mind. Like I said, it's not for everybody. Now that you know the basics of Year Zero, the system, and how it attaches to Alien, and the little modifications, we can talk a little bit more about this as a whole. So I'm going to start near the beginning. Like I said, this is gorgeous. You have a map of the star of the middle heavens. You have a timeline as to the universe, what's happened, who are the powers, how it connects to the movies, and so on. The different cam- campaign frameworks. The fact that the GM is the game mother, hence because of the mother AI in Alien. And then there are two kinds of play: cinematic and campaign. Cinematic is like a movie. It starts. Aliens, everyone dies. Campaign is the same thing, but extended over a longer period of time. So begin, rising action, rising action, rising action, rising action. Aliens, everyone starts to die. This actually sort of overcame one of my trepidations. I wasn't super unsure about Alien when it was announced. I did wonder how many times can we do this? But like I said with the comics, well, you know, a lot. It's not just good for a couple of session play as a break. You can do that with cinematic play and with one of the predetermined or pre-generated cinematic scenarios, Chariot of the Gods in the starter set, Destroyer of Worlds, which sort of accompanies the Colonial Marines operation manual, and Heart of Darkness, which kind of wraps up the three stories in a unifying sort of way thematically. Um, but campaign play is also fun, and that's where you can get sort of your expected traditional kind of gaming out of it. Your characters may still die, but they'll probably die at the end of the campaign rather than the end of the session. All right. Alien is a game of sci-fi, horror, action, and it is meant to evoke a sense of wonder. I mean, you are learning about the universe and all the messed up stuff inside it that shows that people are just humans, a tiny speck there. When you are making your character, it's very straightforward. You pick a career, and this is something like colonial marshal, colonial marine, roughneck, officer, scientist. I think scientist is in here. Let's jump to careers. Colonial marine, marshal, company agent, of course, medics, the kid, yeah, the officer, the pilot, the roughneck, the scientist. Yeah, I was pretty sure the scientist was in there. Um, Naturally, I could have looked before I started recording this, but whatever. And those help determine sort of not too many things, but some things about your character. They are archetypes, but they're pretty loose. So you then get to spend points on your four attributes, then on your skills. You pick a talent, one of three from your career, and talents are just sort of extra special things you can do. So, for example, the colonial marshal has talents of either authority, investigator, or subdue. Different ways of approaching their their job and their role. To elaborate a little bit more, now I would have to find the talents. Here we are. So they were also actually nicely organized because the career ones are under their respective career. So authority lets you use your command skill instead of manipulation to get someone to bend to your will. Investigator um, lets you ask questions of the GM, those ones where they have to be truthful in answers, even if vague, things like that. So a nice little kind of extra bits you get. Um, and then some of the other fun things. I should mention your health is based off of your strength rating, which is probably going to be 5. Now, damage is maybe 1 or 2 plus, but yeah, you can go down really easily. Okay. I want to talk about personal agendas. Personal agendas are fun. They are ways to get experience by acting towards them. In a cinematic game, at least with Chariot of the Gods, there was a new one revealed for each pre-gen every act. And it was something they would act in accordance with. It was a way to help guide role play and overall action. Campaign ones are just longer term. Okay. Uh, uh, I want to talk about something here, but I want to get to that after something else. Um, and that is the part that, okay, so one, it uses zones for maps instead of direct measurement, which I like. Not everyone does. I do. What this means is that you have sort of narrative areas of movement and areas you're able to affect, rather than my gun shoots 50 meters or I can run 100 meters at a fast clip in one round. But here it's I can go between zones. I can make two zones if I run, that sort of thing. Now there are range categories, and those do have measurements attached to them. So like a few meters away or up to 25 meters away and so on. And you can measure time in units as well. So there are rounds, 5 to 10 seconds, turns, 5 to 10 minutes, and shifts, 5 to 10 hours. Things to think about when you're playing because certain events may occur once a shift, or you have to roll for this every turn, things like that. I talked about panic, and I want to talk about, well, okay, we'll start with this. Consumables. Okay, this is something, if you're the game mother, definitely read it over again before you play, especially before you play your first game. This is one of the greatest ways to build tension and build stress in the game, and that is supply rolls. So everything is finite. Air, water, food, and power are all finite resources in this game. You roll for your air supply every turn, and after every strenuous bit of activity. You roll your water supply once a day or after strenuous activity, food once per day, and so on and so forth. This means they'll run out. This means that the PCs have to replenish it or it'll run out. In Chariot of the Gods, if and when you run it, because I think you're probably going to want to run it, don't forget air supply rolls. I didn't do them, and it was the dumbest thing to just leave out. I don't even know why I did it. I did say, by the way, your air is running short, but that means nothing unless there's a mechanic attached to it. Chariot of the Gods works best, and you'll kill more PCs than I did if you make them make air supply rules. But in general, when running Alien, make them make supply rules because resources dwindling is a great motivator to do stuff. And also just, kind of puts the screws to them. Okay. Part of what I'm kind of doing here, if it's not apparent, is I'm talking about some of the sort of specific and unique things I found, things unique to Alien in how it plays. Now, you might remember from the movies, motion trackers and watching those little dots blip, 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 and going freaking out because an alien is coming and you're going to die. Stealth mode is one of the kind of game modes that helps replicate that. And stealth mode involves a turn by turn means of exploration. When you're running the game, have maps handy, blueprints, whatever. If you're on a virtual tabletop, same thing to show the players. In fact, I would just cut that thing out of there and paste it wherever they can see it all the time, and you can see it all the time, because it'll be a pain to constantly go back and forth between it. In stealth mode, the game mother gets to handle enemy movement secretly, and the PCs get to move. And what they're doing is basically working against each other mechanically to see whether they notice them or not, whether they find them or not. And this is that sort of situation. The xenomorphs have reached the building and you need to get out. Well, thankfully, if your M314 motion tracker, which you can use, which takes power supply rolls to use, and it detects objects in certain ranges. Um, this is a great way to build up that, game over man moment to reach that peak Hudson. Okay. So yeah, don't skip on the stealth mode. It's a particularly fun element of it. Definitely panic, things like that. So in terms of gear, there's a suitable amount of it. You get nice pictures of them, weapons mainly, some armor. You get the loader as well, and other equipment. And what they do with this is it's not a massively in-depth um, description or mechanical effect, but they are things that allow you to do things narratively. Like you can't do something with a computer unless you have access to it, or, you know, here's a very simple one because I just looked down and saw watch. Here's a way to measure out turns with your watch because you're counting time. Okay. So things like that. And also, you're going to be picking up improvised weaponry and so on. And it has other purposes, right? That's why it's improvised. Some vehicles, also good things to have. There is, and here's some sections that are really, I guess, useful. So there is Starship, there's Starcraft, spacecraft rules. There are a number of models of spaceships with modules attached to them because maybe you're playing space truckers and you need this, or you're Marines, or who knows, maybe pirates or something. It has rules for space combat, which are very similar and give everybody something to do. The captain gets to draw initiative and give orders. The sensor operator operates the sensors. The pilot makes the piloting rules, things like that. So you don't have like just the pilot or just the captain doing something. Everyone's doing something when you're in a ship, and there are actions for it. Huzzah! Yeah, it's pretty good, solid description. Um, Attached to that, there is a small section on what it's like to live in this age. So what hypersleep is like, neurological disorder, um, supplies, what the universe is like, space stations or spaceships, the deep space colonies, what your living quarters are going to be like, um, how it's a very functional rather than fashionable setting. So you get a religion too. You get a pretty good idea of what it's like to roleplay in this universe. And it's always helpful, especially in a sci-fi one. Fantasy is fantasy, and there are settings that are more involved than others. But I find sci-fi, because it is our future, it's really good to see how things are similar and how they may have changed, or just how there are new versions of it. So let's look at it. So it's good that they look at it here. There are 8 principles for the game mother to follow, and well, I've kind of talked about a lot of them already. But if you look and read through them, they give you a really good idea of what is expected of you as the GM. And some people might go, "Well, I'm the GM. I can do what I want." But yeah, but you're here to play Alien, and they spend a lot of time thinking on this and writing it. So try it. It'll work. It'll help. Uh, the okay. So yeah, I talked about setting bits and so on. The last little bit I want to get into is alien species. You know, why we're all here and not playing a different dark sci-fi game. There's not a lot different in principle to the rest of the game. when talking about the aliens. Now, everything is a xenomorph. They just take that term and apply it across. The literally is xenomorph. So you'll get your standard, spiky tail, elongated head, inner mouth, um, xenomorphs, but it works for anything that's been tampered with. Or now it all still plot wise connects to the same engineer uh, creations, but and there are kind of um, you know calling it a neomorph versus a xenomorph and so on. And xenomorph is still used primarily for the aliens, but also as a catch-all thing, at least from what I've noticed in the scenarios. And they have different stages. They have of development, of course, right, from facehugger onwards. Um, the I want to make sure I've got this here because this is the really cool bit about it. They don't have attributes. Might have some skills, and they roll base dice equal to that. They can't push, but they can have really high skill levels. They Most of them attack only in close combat, but they don't make ordinary close combat attacks. And this is a brilliant bit of game design here to really push home the danger and horror of the setting. Instead of rolling to attack you, they roll to see what the attack was, and happened. So let's go to our standard xenomorph XX121 and the facehugger. It's the facehugger's turn on the initiative. It attacks you. Roll 1d6. 3, a tail lash. It comes for the target, lashing out the tail. It attacks with 5 base dice, damage 1. These are the signature attacks of it. Face grapple. So on the game other side, I actually find that really liberating because it helps keep you objective. There's no chance of any sort of, I don't know, favoritism or fudging against. Like you can't say the GM fudged against you when they say, well, it attacks, and I rolled and it got the acid one that eats through your face. In a game like this, I think that's actually, like I said, I think it's brilliant, and I think it's almost critical to not diminish the impact of it, right? It needs that to really drive home how horrific and dangerous it is. And it means that you as a GM don't have to worry about, screwing over particular players again and again. If it happens, sorry, it was random, right? I guess you can still fudge it if you want to, but understand going in that rules is written. You don't have to, and you can always like, well, book says not for everybody, but could be for a lot. So then you've got some nice generator tables. They create planets for you, jobs if you're space truckers, and so on. Help you build encounters. They're all quite good. I haven't made extensive use of them because I've been using pre-generated scenarios. I have not used Hope's Last Day, which is the pre-generated scenario um, in the core book, but you might try it out. Hopefully, it's to your taste. So, long and short, TLDR, Alien the RPG is fantastic and really drives home the themes of the Alien franchise and is an immaculately designed space horror setting and game. The rules reinforce that. They use a familiar rule set if you've already played other Free League Year Zero games. and which is not a bad thing to have, but also shows how you can tweak it in different ways. It is unforgiving, so keep that in mind when you get down to it. Um, but otherwise, yeah, great designers behind it, the fantastic Cam Banks editing, one of the things that drew me to it in the first place. So check it out. If you're not the GMing type, look for a game, look on Start Playing, poke around, see what's out there. It's definitely worth your time. That being said, as it's a horror game, even though everyone's coming into it going, oh, it's Alien, still keep in mind all your safety tools and lines and veils and everyone's specific comfort levels. You'll probably be getting people matched to Alien, but there might be very specific stuff they're not wild about. And this is the kind of game where that can happen. Just watch the last episode of our first story, and you'll see quite a few instances where you can't just say like, "Oh, it's Alien," expect Alien. And as much as the aliens are monsters, it's really the humans that are the bad people. All right, that was Alien the RPG from Free League Publishing. My name is Simon. This is the Tabletop Almanac. Please follow the links below to pick up a copy of the book. They are affiliate links. I get a little cut if you do that. You pay no extra money, but I get a little something that might help me create more content for this channel. I should note that the core copy of this was given to me for review purposes, but these stances are my own based on my own experiences. So no specific affiliation with Free League Publishing. Be well to each other, and remember, in the cold, dark of space, no one can hear you scream. So stay planet side and underground. YOLO.